Gone with the Wind is one of the most iconic films in Hollywood history. Directed by Victor Fleming, it tells the story of Scarlett O'Hara, a wealthy Southern woman whose life is torn apart by the American Civil War. Known for its sweeping cinematography, dramatic storytelling, and use of the innovative Technicolor system, the film presents a visually stunning version of the American South, especially for its time. However, its portrayal of history is highly controversial, particularly in how it represents slavery and Southern society. Using structuralism and semiotics as a theoretical lens, this essay will examine how the film uses visual symbols and narrative contrasts to construct a romanticized myth of the South prior to the American Civil War, reflecting the cultural values and racial attitudes of the 1930s America. Structuralism and semiotics focus on how meaning is created through patterns and symbols. Film theorists like Roland Barthes argue that images can communicate deeper cultural ideas beyond what's directly being shown. Elements like lighting, costumes, and camera framing can act as signs that represent larger ideas such as power, wealth, or identity. Structuralism is also about contrast. Images shown before and after the war depict the contrast between the wealth and the poverty. In Gone with the Wind, these visual signs and contrasts are used to build a specifically romanticized image of the American South before the war. Although the film is set during the Civil War, which ended in 1865, it was released in 1939, during a time of racial segregation in the United States. The film draws heavily from the Lost Cause mythology, which is something that portrays the pre-war South as a noble and elegant society rather than one that was built on slavery. This contradiction is reflected in the experience of Hattie McDaniel, who played Mammy. She became the first black performer to win an Academy Award at the 12th Academy Awards, yet was required to sit separately from her white co-stars. These cultural conditions help explain how the film both reflects and reinforces the racial attitudes of its time. In the early scenes taking place at Tara, the plantation is shown with wide, sweeping shots of lush fields, beautiful skies, and a large mansion. As we move indoors, the set designs and cinematography emphasize beauty, stability, and wealth. These images act as signs meant to show off the power, class, and elegance of Southern society. However, when we look through a semiotic lens, the deeper meaning behind this imagery reveals itself. It's trying to create a mythic version of the South, which idealizes slavery. The film ignores the harshest realities of the slaves who supported the lifestyle during this era. Later on, during the destruction of Atlanta, the tone of the film shifts dramatically. Intense lighting, chaotic movement, and dramatic music create a sense of collapse and disorder. Scenes like this represent the breakdown of the old social structure. The contrast between the peaceful plantation and the burning city highlights the fragility of that world and the transition into a new one. When Scarlett returns to Tara after the war, the same place is shown but in an entirely different way. The fields are empty and torn up, the mansion is falling apart, and the lighting is subdued. This contrast between the settings shown before and after the war functions as a key structural element. By showing the same space under different circumstances, it communicates heavy loss and hardship. By framing its collapse as tragic, it preserves the mythic status of the Old South. Through its use of visual symbolism, narrative contrast, and cinematic spectacle, Gone with the Wind constructs a romanticized image of the Old South. By applying structuralism and semiotics, it becomes clear that the film is not just telling a story about the past, but actively shaping how that past is remembered. This raises an important question. When films are filtered through myths, what happens to our understanding of history?